In this video, I'm gonna be surviving 7 days in a random US state. To decide which state we're going to, I'm gonna be blindfolded, throwing this sticky ball at a US map. All right, what I hit? Oh, Arizona. Let's go to Arizona.
So after that, the next day, I hopped on a plane to Phoenix and flew across the entire country to where I would be staying for the next 7 days. After landing, we got on these sky trains which took us to the parking lot where our rental car was. Then the first thing we did was get some food at the famous In-N-Out Burger, and it looked like that was everyone else's idea too because it was incredibly busy. But we got to try the food for the first time and it was pretty good. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. After getting lunch, it was time for us to head to our Airbnb and unpack.
Wow. There's more? No way.
On day 2, we woke up early and drove to a mountain with a giant hole in it. So we decided to hike up the mountain and reach the giant hole. After enjoying the landscape from inside the hole, we decided to climb even further to get to the top of the mountain for the best view of the sunrise. After watching the sunrise, it was time for us to climb down the mountain and go back to the Airbnb, where we had some breakfast and then got ready to go to the next place we were going to visit. The next place we decided to visit was called Montezuma's Castle, which is a national park where you can see the remains of an ancient Aztec castle that was built on the side of a mountain, which I thought was pretty cool. But we didn't stay there long before we made our way to our next stop, which was the Wildlife World Zoo, where I met this guy with a strange looking nose.
Hello there. That was rude.
I don't think he liked me. We started off by going to the aquarium where we saw a bunch of obscure looking fish, and we got to feed some stingrays.
Oh my gosh, that is weird. Courage.
Holy brother. Calm down.
Those stingrays acted like they hadn't been fed in years. After that, we saw a bunch of seals doing tricks, and we even got to take a picture with one of them. His name was Crockett. After that, we got to see Celeste's favorite animal, the giraffe, and we got to feed them too.
Just drop it in there.
A little bit slimy.
Okay, ready? Ready?
We finished our trip to the zoo by seeing the rest of the animals, and after we saw all of them, we decided to make our way back to the car. On our way back, we also saw these ostriches and decided to feed them some of the leaves from the tree above us.
I'm so scared it's gonna pounce at me.
Oh, wow.
I tried to feed this ostrich, but he wouldn't eat any of the leaves that we gave him. He would just drop them. So I gave it to the other one instead. After that, we were ready to head back and just relax at our Airbnb. Later that night, when the sun started to set, the sky looked so pretty that we decided to walk around the neighborhood and enjoy the view of the sunset. While we were walking, Celeste said that she wanted to touch a real Arizona cactus for the first time.
We're gonna touch the cactus.
Which one should we poke?
I'm thinking this one. I want to touch that.
That is really... Ow!
Wait,
I
actually.
did it a little bit too much. I'm not bleeding, but I did it a little bit too far.
Oh! Yeah, actually.
You did too?
Yeah, because I wanted. Ow!
On day 3, we decided to attempt to climb Camelback Mountain, a popular mountain hike near Phoenix, which is over 2,700 feet tall and requires about 2 hours of incredibly steep climbing. I don't even know why I decided to do this because I don't even like heights, but I was determined to make it to the top anyways. It started off pretty easy, but after about 20 minutes of hiking, we reached this point where it became incredibly steep and it pretty much stayed that way for the rest of the climb. But we still had a long way to go before we made it to the top of the mountain. After about 45 minutes of straight climbing, we were almost to the top.
We are almost to the top. I'm feeling pretty good, actually.
I don't know how much further we have, but I feel like we're almost there. This is exhausting.
After a little bit more climbing, we finally made it to the top of the mountain, where we were able to get a full 360 view of the city, and it was crazy. We were finally able to just rest and enjoy the landscape. While we were there, my insane friend Joe decided to climb onto the sketchiest part of the mountain, and he somehow convinced me to do it too. But once you get past the fear of falling off, it made for some pretty great shots.
And now the descent begins.
After that, we were ready to head back down the mountain, which thankfully was much easier than climbing it. It only took us about 30 minutes to make it to the bottom, and when we got back to our Airbnb, we were so exhausted that we needed to cool off by jumping in the pool. Later that night, we decided to try out this Mexican restaurant called Old Town Tortilla Factory. I got their steak and Celeste got their ribs, and they were pretty good. I don't want to rank it higher than In-N-Out, so I'll give them a 7 out of 10. Day 4 was a very relaxing day because we knew day 5 and 6 were going to be incredibly busy. We started day 4 by doing some shopping at the Phoenix Outlet Mall, and we also went to the Scottsdale Fashion Square, where we tried some insanely expensive stuff that were way out of our price range. After that, we went bowling and then finished the day by watching Forrest Gump because Celeste had never seen it. She cried at the ending. But on a much happier note, the next day we drove to a location called Antelope Canyon, where we were able to go on a tour down into the canyon and experience the incredible designs and patterns in it. As we walked through the canyon, we saw just how visually stunning it was and why it was so popular. The rest of the tour was a pretty crazy experience, and before we knew it, we walked up through a small crevice and made it back to the beginning where the tour begun.
We have officially been to Lower Antelope Canyon.
But our next stop was probably even crazier and terrifying. Our next stop was called Horseshoe Bend, which is a canyon with about an 1,000-foot drop that surrounds a horseshoe-shaped bend of the Colorado River. And when I looked down at the edge, I instantly wanted to turn back. But I looked over, and yet again, my insane friend Joe was just chilling on the sketchiest part of the canyon, and Celeste decided to give me a heart attack by joining him. While I was busy trying not to have a panic attack, Celeste was having the time of her life, so I decided to just enjoy the view from behind the railing. And even though it was a bit scary, it was still a crazy experience. But afterwards, it was time to head back to the Airbnb and get ready for our final day in Arizona before we go back home. On our last full day of the trip, we saved the best stop for last, one of God's most beautiful creations in the entire world, the Grand Canyon. During most of this trip, we've spent a ton of time enjoying amazing sceneries from the top of mountains, but this was definitely the coolest of all of them. While we were there enjoying the scenery of this national landmark, we also decided to drive over to this area where you can get a view of the sun setting over the canyon. And while the sun was setting, I couldn't help but think how glad I was that that sticky ball I threw at the beginning of the video hit Arizona of all places, because there were so many beautiful landmarks and fun things we got to experience because of it. And with that final sunset in Arizona, it was time for us to go back to our Airbnb one last time and enjoy our last night in Arizona before we had to leave for our flight back home. On day 7, we left to go to the airport and hopped on the plane back to Michigan. And with that, I had officially survived 7 days in a random US state. Make sure to hit the subscribe button for more videos, and I will see you guys in the next video.